the date? Not yet.
Well, thanks for showing up. It's another Friday night. How many of you out there haven't heard the word Heaven's Gate? Have you heard enough of that with me tonight? What are you laughing about? This is a serious subject. Heaven's Gate. We can't wait. I've been doing over 100 interviews today. It's incredible. If you ever find a piece of video that somebody wants, don't tell anybody about it. With me tonight, of course, is Peggy Kane and Jim Nichols, along with two good friends of all of ours, William Hamilton III and Tom King. Tom and Bill both have been on the show before. We're going to talk about Heaven's Gate, and then we're going to get into some dramatic sightings. It was over Phoenix, was it? Over the Arizona Valley, the whole, I mean,
The
Arizona
entire
state?
state.
The entire, right down the entire state.
And this was what date?
March 13th.
March 13th.
Yeah.
Bringing up a date, I've got to say this. We've had Louis Turi on the show,
Yeah.
and Louis said, you know, I made a note. Everybody out there, write down the numbers so you don't have to call me, and I forgot them. But the 27th, he did say. The 27th was going to be a very destructive, powerful day.
Yeah.
And that's when
That's right.
Heaven's Gate came out. It took him 4 days to finish the job, 15 at a time. Is it a tragedy? I had a chance to interview these people. Peggy, you sat in the audience. Nick was in the audience, and maybe some of the studio audience here today were in the audience when, at that time, it was called
The Total Overcomers?
The Total Overcomers, Last Chance to Advance One Step Beyond Human. Now that's a mouthful. And I can recall in the first time Andrea brought him to me and said something, I said, this is the closest thing that I've ever been to an alien. It was incredible. The energy that they gave out, the way that they walked, the way that they talked was almost like a hive mentality, like a mime, one walking doing the same thing. Well, I'd like to talk a little bit about that today. I was on the Larry King show. Larry gave us a total of 2 minutes, barely 2 minutes, to discuss the UFO phenomena. There's one for you. Give me the do's and don'ts of the UFO phenomena in 2 minutes. I'd like to find out if it's going to hurt the phenomena or it's going to help it. Or what's your view on it, Bill?
I don't think it's going to hurt the study of UFOs. I'm a little bit concerned about how the media has made a circus of this, and probably the first thing that they leaped on were these websites on the internet that this group was constructing, right? You know, the Heaven's Gate and Higher Source websites, and they were now talking about restricting the internet, about how they were using the internet to lure these vulnerable people. And I don't think they were lured by the internet at all, because these people started out, their leaders started out over 22 years ago. In fact, I remember going to a big meeting at a hotel in Santa Monica to see this couple, the two, they were called, Bo and Peep, right? And hundreds of people, I had to park blocks away to walk with this stream of people coming into this vast room to hear what they had to say, because they were all over the newspapers at the time. People were selling their homes, they were joining them, and I saw these two very glassy-eyed individuals up there talking about metamorphosis to the next higher level of evolution, just like I heard the talk on this.
Well, you know, I think the interesting thing is it keeps coming up about the UFO connection with these individuals, and my feeling is it has nothing to do with UFOs. This has to do with a group that is actually mind control, in my estimation, that they're a group of people who followed first the two leaders, then a single leader, believed everything that he said, called him father, gave up their will. They were pleasant enough, they certainly were intelligent, but obviously they had a need for something. And for some reason, I mean, you could put anything in there. You could put, I mean, it had Christianity in it. It could be Buddhist, it could be anything. The UFO connection is just a side part of it. This is really about mind control, in my opinion.
Jim?
Well, it's sad. I remember I saw the paper, the headline, the other day, and God, there's so many more interesting things, dynamic things, like the issue about the sighting over Arizona just a short while ago, that is UFO related and newsworthy, that is totally ignored by the media. And yet, you can have a tragedy like this, and the media just gloms on it, blasts it all over, tabloid, media, tabloid news coverage, and we'll throw in a little bit of UFO here, and then the public perceives that as the UFO field itself is just inhabited by Looney Tunes. And the thing that's frustrating to me is, I know yourself, I know countless people within this field who have dedicated their lives into giving some kind of answer to the UFO phenomena, who've tried to give it some kind of credibility, credence, and the media just, you see all that hard work just get flushed away in one day's tabloid headline. That's inexcusable.
What do you think about this, Tom?
I think by linking UFO and cult together is not going to help all the researchers out there, like Jim said, who spent a lot of their time and money for nothing just to try and find what this is all about. I mean, internet sites, as far as UFO information, they're the second most popular sites on the internet. Lots of people hit these, thousands of people, millions a month hit these sites. And just because you look up UFO information on the internet doesn't mean you're part of this cult. You may just want to see some pictures, or maybe see the video or read about what happened.
But what lures those people to that website? Is it because it says UFOs? If it had, what's the excitement of UFOs?
The market. That's what the internet seems to be. The most popular things are a market. I designed my own web page, and it gets a pretty good response, but I couldn't get a response like that selling, encyclopedias. It's the market. The internet market in UFOs is huge.
Well, you just said, what did you say? Religion and UFOs don't go together? Did you say that?
No.
Something like that?
No, when they classify
Cults.
this as a cult, what's the difference between a cult and just any religion? A bunch of people believe in
that's
something.
That's a good point, because if you look at the dictionary definition of cult, every organized religion on the planet comes under that classification.
The Republican Party does too.
Would be a cult.
Really.
It's a way of labeling something that most people don't term as acceptable and want to point the finger or point it into a bad direction to make you feel negative about those people.
Well, if this is the case, should we expect mass suicides from the Unarius Society and the one with Ruth Norman? What's Ruthie's?
Yeah, Unarius.
No, was that the Unarius?
Yeah.
What's the one in France?
The Ray Allen.
The Ray Aliens. Ray Aliens. So should we expect suicide because they kind of have a leader?
Yes.
And they have kind of a religious agenda, and they're reaching the millennium. They're supposed to land.
Well, look at this phenomenon, Ted. Let me offer a little bit of philosophy here. If we look back, in fact, not too long ago in history, people lived together in tribes with a leader, and sometimes the leader was the shaman, and they had one religion, one belief. They lived peacefully together. They felt like they could associate with brother and sister. And that's what these people seem to be doing. They seem to have a feeling of alienation from the machineries of civilization, right? And they're withdrawing from it to live again in that kind of like a tribe-like environment where the leader can say, there's some kind of hope. See, they filled them with hope.
I think too that one of the things with the difference with the tribe scenario is that families stayed together.
Yeah.
Usually it was extended families. This was the primary requisite for this group was to be removed from your family and your friends and all your old life, to come into this new life, be totally separated from your material. Your will is really, you give up your will for the rewards of some kind. And I think this is where that mind control really comes in, because you have no frame of reference. You have no, you're not allowed to disagree. I mean, if you disagree, then you're out of it.
See, I went through an experience like that. It was called basic training.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
You know, I think this also brings to focus an issue that about our culture in general. That there's something about our culture that doesn't satisfy people's spiritual needs. It's like there's something missing. There's something lacking that Western civilization cannot address. And I mean, even now, it's like you have people who have near-death experiences or extraterrestrial encounter experiences, and right away the media will drag out this scientist, psychologist, and say, well, these are just chemical imbalances in the brain that are generating these phenomena. There's nobody out there. There's no life after, you know, there's no hereafter. And it's like, this is all there is, folks. You better just, you know, just enjoy it. And it's like, you know, how empty, how soulless, you know? It's like, it's inhuman. It's like, it's natural for people to reach out to seek beyond. And we offer a society that's sterile.
So then we go shopping.
Go shopping.
We go shopping.
Be good little consumers, be good little taxpayers.
To fill up
Don't
that
ask
void.
any hard questions. You know, just go home and don't worry about those things.
Well, we also have a tendency to follow the norm without asking questions. For instance, one of the questions was asked to me today, time after time, did they go to their spaceship? Now that sounds like a rhetorical question, but I said, well, let me ask you a question before I answer that. I asked him, can you show me where heaven is? And where is heaven? It's up there, but once you get up there, it's all over, it's all around. Where do you stay? So my answer to him was, yeah, maybe they did go to the UFO. I mean, they wanted it so bad, they could. But see, going to heaven, nobody laughs about. You could, in any culture, you could say, I'm going to go to heaven, and nobody says anything. But these guys died with the purpose of going onto this flying saucer, and everybody all of a sudden laughs about this thing.
Why is, I wonder how come the scripture in this case is so often ignored in the New Testament when it said, when supposedly, right, Jesus says to his disciples that the kingdom of heaven is not within the realm of observation, and if someone tells you, look here or there, you will not see it because the kingdom of heaven is within you.
Mm-hmm.
And why is that ignored? That's right there in the New Testament, and I thought fundamentalists went by the word in the scripture. I've been baffled by that for a long time, because if you point to heaven directly above and somebody in China's pointing directly above, they're pointing in the opposite direction.
You know, the way
Good point.
the way the media treats, the way they said that they wanted to transform into a spiritual state and leave the body, it's as though they treat it as that's terrible, that's totally bad, and almost everybody hopes that someday when they get old and they die, that will happen to them. There will be another place we will go, and our life won't end. And the media treats this like, no, you broke our kind of conformist rules, you people go to hell, because that's unacceptable in the mass society to have an early checkout like that. It's shocking when people do that, but I just see that as a wrong way to present that. It's almost as if there's no heaven. That's a joke. If you believe in there's a heaven too, then you're part of a cult or something.
Our society has become a fast food society. The microwave isn't fast enough anymore. Sound bites, ratings. In a half an hour show, get 30 people on there to talk. So that would give you 1 minute to, what can you do in it? But we demand that being viewers. The commercials that you see. I had a call from a gentleman in London, and he threw up his arms and he says, all of this, he heard me on Art Bell, and he says, all of this mainstream media aren't telling the story. They're soundbiting and looking for ratings on Sweeps Week.
Exactly.
And he says, everybody's playing this today, watch tomorrow. Today was castoration. Everybody was talking, oh man, those guys were castrated on it. Everybody picked it up from Fox to CNBC to NBC, and they played with it. Tomorrow will be something else. And they will play it and play it and play it until, I don't know, till what? Till we get tired of it? And this is a hard question, should we feel sorry for these people?
I don't know.
I don't feel sorry for them.
Didn't they do what they wanted to do?
Yeah,
you know,
they did. what
They
were-
seemed
They made a
quite
choice.
happy doing what they were doing.
They didn't mess up the house. They didn't paint it with graffiti. They didn't leave trash all over, dirty socks on the floor.
No?
It seems like the public and Janet Reno are the only ones that are unhappy. The
Yeah.
media.
ATF
Maybe
too.
she wanted, and the ATF wanted to kick their doors
Yeah,
in,
right.
arrest them, and put them in jail forever.
Beat them to the punch, huh?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think that's this will be kicked around for. I hope it'll be kicked.
Well, yes, Ted. But it's a great diversionary tactic, because the bottom line is that the UFO issue is still going to be an unresolved issue,
Yeah.
still a politically dynamite issue that I think the powers that be would just as soon have the public's attention diverted away from. And this is a classic example of how to use the media to divert their attention from the real issue, which is, are we being visited? Are we alone in the universe? To cult.
Stan Crosby, he's putting on or helping a number of people put on the Roswell conference that's going on in July. And I called him today, and he feels that this is really hurting him. And maybe because some of the members were from New Mexico, I think 8 of them were from New Mexico. But I told him, I says, this isn't anything really new to us that have been in the field. It's just another curveball, and we have to get together to be able to stand up and fight for what is it. We could go down, oh no, yes, it's going to hurt us, then it will. But we have to be vocal about it. We have to tell them about the Hale-Bopp comet, that's their belief system on that. Sure, we brought out what we felt was what was being told as truth. We have Dr. Courtney Brown coming off and saying that he is this remote viewer. But you know, there hasn't been one word of Courtney Brown in any of the news media.
There was.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
seen
It was
him.
on
Did you hear it?
TV.
Yeah. It was just like you said, a quick soundbite to say he thought he had contacted through remote viewing an alien
said he
spaceship
thought?
up there. Yeah.
He said thought.
Well,
Art Bell
not
said last
quoting
night,
him
he talked
exactly.
that he says he's standing by all of the remote viewing that he's done. He is standing by it.
I think so, yes.
Okay.
Well,
So is there any last comments?
Yes.
Are we going anywhere? Are we going to have any more suicides? Is
What-
this,
I hate to bring this up and notify people that there are still other groups out there that would be considered to be UFO, quote, cults, because that's how they're going to associate these groups. And there's one in Hawaii, I know, and they're talking about Hale-Bopp. Now, I don't believe they have any intention of laying down their bodies and going to meet the comet's companion or anything like that, because they're talking about mass landings that are going to happen. So they're waiting for the spacecraft to come here.
Sheldon Idle's group?
Sheldon Idle's group, yes. And there are others that I know about.
Well, do we as investigators or people in the UFO phenomenon, do we have should we go out and expose these or help protect these, or what should we do? Just let them go run on their own the way they are?
what can you do? I
call the
mean,
police and turn your
Turn-
neighbor in. I mean,
Right.
everybody has their own
Yeah.
individual rights to believe whatever they want. And I think it should stay that way, and it should stay that way on the internet, too.
That would be useful for Janet Reno. I mean, it's like more control. Let's have more control over the population. I don't think that's the way to go.
Yeah, I really think that everybody has a right to their own belief system, but I think as people involved with the UFO phenomenon that we need to just stay with our own ethical approach to things, whatever we're doing, come from our own sense of truth and keep doing what we're doing. And, we can't worry about whether these people kill themselves because of a comet or because of Christianity. I mean, like the Jim Jones massacre or mass suicide, they were Christian, a Christian cult, and it didn't negatively affect the Christian religion. Again, I think we're talking mind control. We're not really talking, and then the belief system is superfluous to the mind control issue.
If another question that was asked to me was, did they give you at any time any inkling that they were going to commit suicide? I have yet to know how somebody was going to, unless they came right up to you and said, I'm going to commit suicide, how you would know. I'm not a psychologist. I wouldn't have a clue of what was going to happen. And even if they did, what would society do? The police, if we only knew. Well, what would you do if you only knew? Don't they have their own rights to do whatever they want to do up to a point? I mean, how can you control something like that? Do you?
Yeah, not really. And of course, we see the image of somebody who has the intention of committing suicide as being extremely distraught, in a great deal of distress or despair, and not somebody who is happily going to take a journey somewhere.
Yeah, one last question before we leave this. There was a suitcase and $5 bills and some change and the quarters in their pockets. Anybody got an idea what that was for?
Maybe there was a Pepsi machine on the Hale-Bopp companion.
How about the suitcase? Okay, I'll buy that one. Now give me the suitcase one.
Well, they had new alien clothes to put on.
But if they left, that is really strange. That's that one strange thing that just didn't. Jim, do you have any idea why they would do that at all?
Well, maybe the CIA left it there.
I was looking for a government. A couple people called me up and asked me, "Hey, Ted, do you think there's a government connection here? Can anybody even stretch one out here other than the suitcase?"
Not now, but let this all die down. Give it 2 years, 3 years maybe, and then the little government connection things will start to pop up.
How could they? I mean, where is it coming from?
It happened with David Koresh. It happened with Jim Jones.
Yeah,
all the little government connections that start to filter out.
Makes people wonder.
They could have been monitored and
Oklahoma
phone
bomb
tapped by the government, and the government knew the intentions the whole time and let it happen.
Right.
Who knows?
Right. It could be an
Here's one.
MK Ultra project.
Here's one. Mind control over their computer screens that made them do it.
HARP?
No? Well, that's stretch.
HARP.
Just fired up HARP?
HARP. Yeah,
yeah.
that's
HARP
it.
did
We can
it.
blame HARP.
There you go.
Forgot about
Answered
that.
your question.
All righty. Well, we'll just
covered
move
that
on
one.
here. We'll just bury this subject here.
Oh, jeez.
I
That was pretty bad, Ted.
Was it pretty
That
bad?
was pretty bad, yeah.
I was dying to get that out.
Oh, jeez.
I heard them all today.
Ted, put the glasses back on. The media star.
Yeah.
So, to a really, I guess, more serious subject having to do with the UFO and the flying saucers. But they weren't flying saucers. They
Not
were
flying
triangular.
saucers.
They were
Not
triangular.
and the
Flying
first
triangles.
question I have to ask is, how come this didn't get equal coverage in the media?
Exactly.
It
Because-
is right now.
Yeah, but the sightings themselves, right? Because they were highly significant. And we're talking about a very, very large object. And my question to begin with is this object is seen in different locations and different times in such a way that it can be plotted on a map coming right down the state of Arizona. And it was seen also in California and Nevada
On the same evening.
on the same evening, the evening of March 13th. And if something that large and that stealthy and that silent can penetrate United States airspaces, what happened to the instruction I had when I was a teenager or when I was in the Air Force, right? At the Air Force, the National Guard was there defending our airspaces. That's NORAD there too with their radar facilities, looking for any intruders into our airspace. No We were told no Russian bombers could get beyond the continental shelf and penetrate our airspaces. Why? Because we'd send out interceptors, and we had this thing where they would have identification, friend or foe. Now, something like this, in a large enough span of time, can just float through our skies over urban areas, and they could have been doing anything at all, right? We don't know. Maybe this is the time to spray them, right? Where's our defense? Where's the interest?
You said something very large. How large is large?
Descriptions came in that this object was anywhere from 3 to 4 times the span of one of the jumbo jets, the 747, if you saw it passing overhead on a landing approach to an airport. And some even thought it was a mile in span. Okay, I think that is probably an exaggeration. But this is one of those very large triangular objects that had some very strange and superior technology, because at different points of observation, people reported a change in the opacity of the object, so that, for instance, they could not even see anything but the lights, or they could see some kind of a translucent shape there, or they saw an opaque shape that had details like panels. And the lights turned out to be something, an object of some kind that could detach itself from the main triangle, fly away, probably some kind of scanning probe of some kind. It was deployed into the environment, and it was seen returning. And the lights on the object were seen also to change color. The object was seen to go at blimp speed, and yet it had to accelerate at tremendous speeds to cover the distances between the points it was seen in Arizona coming down from the north in Paulden around 8:16. Then shortly after that, about 30 miles south in Prescott Valley. Then it was seen in Dewey. Then it's seen in Cave Creek, also Glendale, points west in the valley. And then it's seen on a kind of a southeast course from there, and it's going southeast, passing over Phoenix and Scottsdale, and then turning toward Tempe, and crossing the air traffic pattern so that commercial airline pilots could see this thing. In fact, one guy was taking off, and he could see it above him. He called the tower, and he asked the tower to check the lights on radar. What is this thing on radar? What does it look like? They said, we can't pick it up on radar.
Do you believe that?
That's a possibility.
It seems this object did almost a beeline from Kingman down to Tucson and hit almost every major city on its way down there. And from the timing, it seems that when it got to a big city, it seemed to slow down, cruise at a very low altitude, between 2,000 and 3,000 feet is what is reported. And then when it came time to leave the city, it raced like a son of a gun to get to the next one and slow down. And it seemed like it didn't care who seen it, who taped it, if planes were in its way or not. This thing came somewhere over Camelback Mountains and headed towards Tempe and did an illegal maneuver by going right through Sky Harbor while planes were coming in. This thing was coming from north heading south. And from the videos we've seen, which or at least 6 shot that night, and there were 2 major events that took place in Phoenix, that there are a lot of planes flying by these objects, and at least a dozen pilots had to have seen this probably from very close range. And it's almost like it didn't care. One witness who is retired from the Navy, he's a former explosives expert, seen this. And he said the lights on it were white until it went south and got near Tempe. Then they turned red, and he stated that it seemed the object ascended almost as it had to clear South Mountain. It was that low.
Well, let me ask you, either one of you, what color lights are on a conventional airplane that if you're standing outside looking up, what are usually the
Primarily red and green
Red and
with
green.
white.
red and green and white?
You
So-
have a red on the left, green on the right, looking forward.
So if you saw something with blue or an orange, would that?
That would alert you that you're seeing something. Blue, in fact, is counter to FAA regulations to carry those kind of navigation lights.
What
and
about
you should have an anti-collision strobe too on something that big.
what about you know, this being something that's been is sort of released by our own government and sort of maybe a test to see what people are going to do. You know, we all know that there's technology, that we have technology that is not made public, probably farther along than we even can imagine.
My answer to that is, if this is technology that we have, then it's far more advanced than anything that's conventional. In fact, is way superior to anything that's engineered by us, and I would suggest that this technology in the first place came from somewhere else. I do not see any real solid evidence that these triangles are other than something off planet or from some other place, but not made here locally in the USA or on Earth. Right?
It appears it may have started in Kingman that night with the first sighting. We're still investigating if there was video and if they did
Now,
play
about
this
what
on the
time
news.
was this?
This was before it arrived at Kingman,
About what time in the evening, do you know?
before 8 o'clock.
Well, it was seen, this or a similar object was seen in Las Vegas at about 5 minutes before 8 o'clock Arizona time. They're on a different time.
But that points a straight line back to Area 51.
I was just going to say, that's
But there was no activity at Area 51 that night, according to Chuck Clark. They did not see anything up there at all.
Okay, but you guys weren't out. You were out that day. I think, Bill, you told me you were out
Well,
that day.
yes, in
But you
fact.
didn't actually see that. You were doing something different.
Well,
something else.
what we were doing was, I had an email that this fellow living in Ahwatukee cited some brilliant lights that he saw near the Estrella Mountain Range over the Gila River Indian Reservation, okay? And I thought, boy, I'm going to have to go check this out, because not only that, he had been taking videotape 3 nights in a row starting on March the 10th. Now, it just so happens that on March the 13th, Stephen Greer arrived in town, and I went down to meet him and have dinner with him. And I had called up Tom, and I said, meet me down at Village Labs, Tom, bring your video gear, and we're going to go, after we meet with Steve, we're going to go down there and check this out. And so just before 8:30, before the primary event took place, we got into our cars and we were navigating the freeways to get to Chandler Boulevard and over to Ahwatukee and to where this guy's house was. And as for myself, I wasn't looking at the skies at that particular time. I was looking at street signs. So when we got to his house, the door was open, and believe me, this was quite a sight.
This was unusual.
Because it was like half the neighborhood was there, coming in and out of the house.
Saying
And this
you
guy's
just missed
name
it.
is Steve, and I said, are you Steve? No, I'm not Steve, he's over here. And I'm going, are you Steve? No, I'm not Steve, I'm a neighbor. And then finally we find Steve, and he says, oh, you guys came a little bit late. We already saw something, but I'll show you the video. So he shows us all the video that he had taken. And then we got around to asking him, I'm trying to keep this brief, where were you when you saw this? And he took us up to a second floor balcony, which is just off the master bedroom. And we went up there, and they're pointing over to the southwest, and you can just see the silhouette of the mountains over there in the southwest. There are no lights over there. There don't appear to be any dwellings or anything like that. And then suddenly somebody said, there's one now. And we see this brilliant, and I've seen them in California. They've been seen moving in California up to this huge light that hangs over the Lucerne Valley. And they're brilliant golden yellow or golden orange in color. And so as they started showing up, Tom ran down, got his video camera. I got my video camera and found out my battery's dead. He drags out his new spotting scope, and
His battery is dead.
no, his battery's
not
good.
mine.
Steve didn't have tape. My battery's dead. He's the only one that could
Yeah.
shoot these objects on video, and I think
And They were below treetop level.
Yeah.
They were that low. I mean,
Yeah.
we were on the second story, and they were just under the trees. I had to jump up on top. We were already on the second story. I jumped up on his ledge, standing about 35 feet off the ground or so, videotaping these objects. They were that low.
How big were they?
That's hard to say. They were big because these things are really bright. And I have a Hilux camera that won't even film the Orion star cluster, which one person stated we filmed. It won't film the Hale-Bopp either, but it sure filmed these things. And they didn't give off any surrounding light in a way that they would illuminate anything around it. Just the light itself was illuminated, but they didn't illuminate any of the sky, just where they were. They looked like large orange bulbs of light, and they flickered almost as if it had a high-speed strobe.
Yeah, like a high flicker rate. And there was no smoke. There was no parachute structure. I was looking through the telescope. And if they were flares, somebody said, we're seeing flares around the valley. Flares, they burn a different color. They're suspended on parachutes. They descend, they fall. They don't maintain formation. Let's maintain a perfectly straight line from our point of view, right? And in fact, one of the objects, and you can see this on the tape, split into two. There are two objects very close together. And they have this very high flicker rate. But this was common in California because they've been seen as close as 20 feet away, hovering 5 feet off the ground. And even 5 feet off the ground, you cannot see the reflection of light as brilliant as they are from the ground. Now, how in the heck do they do that? Tell me that's not
It
superior.
seemed as though one object showed up, it split into two. Then it seemed like when it almost thought, okay, the coast is clear, here comes the rest of them, lining up all in a row when they show up. And they show up at an angle, and they drop to about this elevation. So this one hovers if these are flares. There's 4 of them. And the other one drops down to its position, and they go out one by one.
No, it's just not you two guys that are seeing it. There's the kind of a half of a neighborhood that's viewing it.
There were at least 3 videos shot the exact same time I was shooting this video, and Bill and the 12 other people were watching this. These 3 other people were shooting this at the same time. From one person was 25 miles north of us, and he caught more than 4 objects in a line. He caught about 8 of them.
How long was this? How long does this run? How much tape did you shoot?
I shot on that sighting because there was one quick one before, about 6 minutes.
And what do they do? Just blink out?
Yeah, they blink out one by one. And on the other person's video, they blink out at a different sequence, and there's more of them, and it's a little bit shorter, but we're pretty sure that it was shot at the exact same time.
Yeah, well, no, they actually went on going from the left to the right, like this. And you can see it on Tom's video, you can see it on the other person's video. That's the way they went on. They went off in the reverse sequence. They extinguished from right to left.
Now, were these lights also in conjunction with this triangular craft you're describing, or were they functioning independent of any other craft, large craft?
The triangular craft, which is shown in these drawings by 2 of 8 witnesses who were in Chandler, saw it pass very low, and they made these drawings for me. They could hear no sound, right? And that passed over their house in Chandler maybe somewhere around 8:30. We videotaped these lights around 10 o'clock, and then we found out a lot of other people have been seeing these we call them orbs in California, so I term them orbs because when they're seen up close, they look just like balls of light,
Right.
about the size of a basketball, but there can be different sizes. And a lot of them are being seen way out in the West Valley near the Palos Verdes nuclear generating station.
I got a report last night. Oops. Microphone fell off. Same phenomenon happened in Ohio Wednesday night. A boomerang with these orange orbs flying all over Ohio. Same phenomenon. These things split from 1 into 5. They seem to move apart and get back together as to dock, and they seem to go up to this boomerang and then leave it. So there is some collaboration that these orange objects are somehow associated with this large boomerang. And the sighting that took place on March 13 was seen first reported by police officers. At least one pilot's reported to see it. We're still tracking down more police officers who've seen it. We could almost confirm 1,000 people on this, and possibly 10,000.
You're getting all kinds of help from other investigators or researchers around the Phoenix area?
Yeah, MUFON is doing a hell of a job investigating this. And I don't say that a lot, but I could say it about this. Richard Motzler is doing an incredible job assembling witnesses. There's even photographs of this showing some structure inside these orange lights that we haven't seen yet.
And during this whole time, nothing was sent up out of Luke Air Force Base to intercept this craft, to investigate it, to chase it away?
The responses we got out of Luke are very interesting indeed. And that is this, okay? The TV show Strange Universe was calling Luke, because they did a piece on this, which we'll show this coming Monday night. And they called Luke to talk to their media contact person, a sergeant, let's say Sergeant Smith. And they said, we don't have such a sergeant on our roster here, right? So they got the number from a newspaper, a journalist up in Prescott, of his home number, and reached him at home. And such a person does exist, okay? Another thing, Luke said, we didn't receive any calls that night about this sighting. This is what they told the media. We didn't receive any calls. And yet Peter Davenport, with the National UFO Reporting Center up in Seattle, states that a number of people called saying they got his number by calling the desk out at Luke. So they lied about that. And then another thing the media reported, supposedly they got from some Luke spokesperson, was we don't send any flights out of Luke at night. We bed the planes down for the night, right? They go to sleep, right, along with the pilots. And yet there's people that live near Luke that will tell you, we see night flights all the time.
I see. Okay.
And on top of that, there's they contacted the National Guard, who would know about military exercises and if they're going on in schedule. They said they didn't know anything about it. Then later...
Anything about what?
About any military activity going on that night or association with these lights. They didn't know, it wasn't them. Then they changed their story after this hit the 5 o'clock news as a top story of the hour. By the time it hit the 10 o'clock news, the military remembered they were involved. They were down by Barry Goldwater Range, shooting off some flares for some anti-missile experiments to see if missiles would lock on the flare instead of the aircraft. This explanation does not address how this object started in Kingman and went down to Tucson, but was located over Barry Goldwater, which is about 35 miles south of Phoenix.
Yeah, the report I got was flares. What was the other one, Tom? Help me out.
Oh, there's F-22s, the Blue Angels, a number of people sitting in their armchairs came up with all kinds of
hallucination from a psychologist in Utah, 10,000 people and 6 videos.
like
we now have 10,000 kooks in the city of Phoenix.
Sounds like the planet Venus to me.
Yeah,
planet.
must be Venus.
Nobody came up with that.
Nobody did?
No.
Maybe it's Hale-Bob's companion.
Hale-Bob's companion.
Yeah.
Somebody
Haven't heard
slipped
that.
up
That could be
here.
it.
So what do you go with this? What do you do? Is it just another sighting? Do you just file it away? What do you do with it?
Well, we're trying to make some noise with this one. I'm preparing a summary report, probably for several publications. We've gone to television with it, and I think anybody who will see this segment coming up on Monday night will be very impressed. They're going to do 2 blocks on this because all of the witnesses sitting there and now seeing each other's videotape for the first time and going, yeah, that's exactly what I saw, but I was over in this part of the city.
You guys brought videotape?
Yeah.
Well, Nick's going to get that set up here in a minute. One of the camera people will let us know when it's all set up. You know, I called you, when did I call you? I called you Saturday, was it Saturday? That I had received a call from people that live pretty close to the studio from listening to our show and viewing this show. And they said that they got up at 5 o'clock in the morning and actually looked outside and saw 20 to 30 disc orb-shaped things flying in a V formation right over Tucson going. And she said, I couldn't believe it, and went and got her boyfriend to come out, and they both looked at it through binoculars. That was the only report. I called June Scher and asked June. She's the head of MUFON here in Tucson, and I don't recall whether or not she got any calls on it or not. They were going to draw pictures for me, and I just haven't been able to pick it up. But that was about the same period of time, the same time.
Oh yeah, we're still getting sighting reports. We had them from the 19th and 20th as well.
I think
Yeah.
that the tape's ready.
Okay, real quick, this is not a new thing. Back during the Gulf War, when you were living in California, there was a sighting like this over a military base, wasn't there?
Yeah. Well, there was a jet pilot who reported that they were seeing these spheres or orbs in the sky above them, several
This is
thousand
during the
feet.
Gulf War, and
During the Gulf War.
nobody vectored any fighters to.
They were told not to.
Well, I certainly feel safer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Set up this tape. Tell me what we're going to see.
Go ahead.
Okay, this is
Just set it up and then we'll roll it.
this is the video shot on March 13th with 5 strange orange objects. 4 of them are in a line.
Okay, is this anything up in the sky? Is this disc, this flying saucer? This triangular-shaped
We
craft?
still do not know if this is the boomerang. I don't think so. I think this is probably another phenomenon related with it somehow.
All right,
but-
so, okay. So if the tape's ready, go ahead and play
It's on.
it. Okay. Come back up.
First, there was one object that showed up, and it seemed to split into 2. When I focused the camera lens on it, it was 2 orange objects close side by side. Then one of the neighbors shouted, "There's another one." I looked beside my camera. I seen another orange object. I shot that one. Didn't know which one to shoot. They were pretty far apart. Then they said, "There's another one." Then there's 2 side by side. So I thought, I better stick with these 2. And on video, it becomes the 3rd object and then the 4th object in a line. They held this formation and hovered as the other objects started slowly moving and getting closer to them. This lasts for probably 5, maybe 6 minutes on video. Then they start fading out one at a time. Or I think they might have went behind a mountain peak on some of them. But according to the triangulation from the other witnesses' videos, they were blinking out at different patterns.
Bill, what are these things?
You know, we can't tell you what they are, but we can tell you what they are not. And you know, this is what we do as investigators. We eliminate what they are not. Conventional type of objects. They are not flares, definitely. They are not aircraft lights of any known type. We've had pilots who spotted them. I had a report from a pilot who saw these very same lights in the Estrellas on March the 7th. I don't know what they are, but they're very strange because of their luminosity. The luminosity should be reflective off of surrounding reflective surfaces, and it is not. So that tells me that it's something very strange indeed.
You know, it's funny. It's like there is so much aircraft activity around the Phoenix area. I mean, just on a daily basis, it's amazing to see one plane after another come into Sky Harbor, 24 hours a day. I'm surprised anybody bothers to notice, you know, there's something even stranger
The
out
color of the orange and the size is what really made these things stand out. And I like to point out from all the witnesses we've heard of that seen these orange lights or the triangle, not one has stated they thought they were flares. Not one.
That's
Only the
interesting,
military has.
So these people are used to seeing lots of aircraft all the time.
A
It's
lot of the
like-
witnesses
So-
did
so
4
something
years
that
in
is
the military,
unusual-
they're familiar with it.
Right, so something that is out of the ordinary will stand out to them.
Yeah, and also flares. Some of the witnesses who shot this have shot prior video. It seemed to start around the 7th and then really go day after day from the 10th, 11th, and 12th and went berserk on the 13th.
When was the 13th? Was it full moon 13th?
Thursday.
What's going on?
No, we
no,
recorded
it
that too. It was just a partial moon.
Yeah.
They said they've seen these things in the sky for 2 hours at a time.
At the same
hovering.
place?
Different places, over South Mountain, over Estrella, over Palo Verde's nuclear power plant, west of Phoenix. Bill's got a report now up by Payton,
Yes.
over Camelback Mountains after the 13th they happened.
All right, we've got about 30 seconds before we roll credits and music. If you guys get any more, pardon me? So if you guys get any more information about this, can you come on back and kind of give us an update and see if you can get some video of that craft that's going, that alleged triangular craft that flew from Kingman to Tucson and then back up?
We
to-
have seen one video of that, so I
Yeah.
do know a
Yes, there
video
is.
does exist.
It does
Yeah.
exist?
Yes,
Yeah,
it
we've
does
And
exist.
how did it look?
It was
Lights in the sky?
lights in the sky, one object trailed off and then came back up to it.
Can you actually see the triangle?
You
You
can
can
see
see
the
a V,
V-shaped
yeah.
formation of
A
light.
V.
About 5 lights.
About what time of the night?
This
Um,
is close to
Oh, yeah, 8
between
o'clock,
8:20,
8:30.
8:30.
It was
Yeah.
shot in Carefree on the roof of the man's house with a high-8 camera.
Yeah.
Alrighty, well thanks a lot. Do we have any things that we need to talk about before we go out?
We have announcements.
What announcements do you have?
Yeah, we have a couple of announcements. Just want the folks in Phoenix to know that UFO AZ is airing at 1:30 on Saturday now. We also have Future Visions, a day of self-discovery, crop circles and prophecies with Dr. Chet Snow, whom we've had on the show here. Most people are familiar with Dr. Snow. And that is presented by ARE, Rocky Mountain Region, Arizona Teams. There will be 2 lectures. One is going to be Saturday, April 19th in Sedona, but there'll also be a lecture Saturday, April 26th in Tucson, and call Russ Purvis, 520-751-7985. One more thing. We have summer seminars, Hail Bop and Beyond. This is sponsored by the International UFO Congress. I guess this is their summer.
This is the new one.
summer-
This is the inaugural.
Yeah, they've not done a summer Congress before, so this is their first time. This is going to be held at the Gold River Resort in Laughlin, which is where we were last January, from August 10th through the 16th. And I guess they have a pretty big lineup here. I don't know how many confirmed, but they have lots of invited speakers. David Icke, let's see,
That's
Zachariah Sitchin, Robert Temple, just all kinds of people. So if you'd like information about this Congress, call area code 303-543-9443.
And Bob has a reputation of putting on one of the best conferences in the United States, and the lineup is incredible. I just hope that it works out for him, because it's the hottest time of the month to be in
I know.
year to be in Laughlin. But I guess you're going to be inside, gambling away, Jim, spending,
Yep.
spending your hard-earned money on those
Chinga,
slot
chinga, chinga.
machines. Next week we were going to have Tom Kelly, I think. Is that right, Brenda? But he's canceled because he couldn't get off. And where are we going? We're going to, did you say Essence of Tranquility?
Well, that's Saturday and Sunday, which is April 5th and 6th. And we're going to be leaving Saturday morning to go out to the hot springs. If anybody wants to join us out there, please give me a call so you get your name on the list. It's filling up very fast. You can call me at 520-398-3128.
And Peggy, you said this has been filling up very fast for the last 5
I
weeks.
know.
What's going on? If it's filling up fast, why does it take 5 weeks?
Is there any room left in the hot tub?
In the hot tubs. That's because everybody's saying, yes, they're going, but I have to get write their names down. So now I sent a pad out there in the audience.
And we also, for those of you that don't know, we also have a radio show. It's at KTKT. Did I say that right?
Yes, you
Yes.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Dolores Cannon.
And
is coming.
Dolores Cannon will be on. She'll tell you what's going on with Nostradamus and some of the effects of the UFOs. And so if you get a chance, tune us in on Thursday nights.
Thursday night,
9
9
o'clock.
o'clock.
We'd like to thank Channel 7 up in Prescott.
Oh, yeah.
Channel 7
The
and Prescott for really
opportunity
helping us.
to,
Yeah.
Do a little talk on their program.
Just to get back to the hot springs, though, the BBC is coming out to videotape everybody. So
The hot tub UFO
the hot
cult.
tubs.
Now there's a cult if I've ever heard one. All right, well, thanks a lot for joining us. We'll see you next week here at UFO AZ. Bye for now. Hail Bob and beyond.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Good show.
It'd be fun to see that triangular
You'll
shaped
see
vehicle
all the video in Strange Universe.
on Strange Universe.
Well,
When's-
not all of them except one. One got copyrighted.
I see.
Attorney.
Watch Tuesday night.
Tuesday night,
two
Strange
nights in a
Universe.
Because Pam will be on.
Oh, cool.
Do you run 2 episodes in one night?
No, that'll be Tuesday night, Black Helicopter.
Oh, okay.
Well,
Are
there it
the
is.
mics down?
I don't know.
Is there music playing?
Well,
The music should be playing.
it should be playing. It's
Should
just
be.
that it's going out, but we
It's
can't
going
hear it
out.
in here.
We just better hope it's going out.
I hope
right?
so. Otherwise, they're hearing us
Yeah.
chatting about
Chatting
it.
about it. So we'll have to put sound in here.
Yes.
Oh, somebody tell us, are we out?
No,
Not yet.
we're still on. It's now Don Pickett. Is Don Pickett still our producer?
No, I'd
Oh.
just scratch it instead of pick it.
Scratch that Pickett. Thanks to Cisna.
Just gotta go.
Jim Nichols UFO art.
Yeah, not yet.
HTTP.
That's gotta go too.
Here's a map one witness drew as it flew over his head of the triangle. Yeah. Blue Angel.
Well, you saw one of these triangles at your house here in Tucson.
In Tucson, yeah. An orange triangle. A couple years ago.
So the
Except
orange
it
triangle
It had
people
the
are coming.
points, the lights were at the points.
Mhm.
And there was something moving in the center, but I couldn't see what it was. And
They
it
seem to
floated.
form geometry from boomerangs, straight lines, diamonds, and stars.
This would go much better with yours out
Okay,
there.
I'll put that on. Whoa.
Yeah,
You're pretty cosmic, girl.
yeah.
It's
The
Peggy.
Cosmic Girl.
That's what do you think? What do you
Yeah,
think?
yeah, I think it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you see the companion yet?
Oh
She's
my
been
God, I
seeing the
can
companion
see
for
it.
weeks.
Yes,
Are we
there
out?
it is. There, I see it.
Are we out?
No.
What happened to the time on this? We could have talked for another 3
Yes,
minutes.
well, that's because you started too early.
She told me 30 seconds.
Till credits. Till the end of the